This is Join Us in France, episode 401. 401. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France. Everyday life in France, great places to visit in France, French culture, history, gastronomy, but this week there will not be any news related to travel to France because I am on vacation. Today, I bring you a trip report with Kelly Young about her trip between Toulouse and Marseille. They went to 5 cities in 11 days, which is quite the feat. And they used the train a lot. There were several of them. It didn't always go smoothly because there were a few things that they didn't quite understand. You will hear all about that so you don't make the same mistake. They had a lot of fun, however, and they learned a lot, and so will you if you listen to this episode. But I do want to thank all the people who make this podcast possible. They are the ones who buy my products and services listed at my boutique at joinusinfrance.com/boutique or become patrons by going to patreon.com/joinus. Patreon, join us, no spaces or dashes. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, Kelly Young, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Hello, bonjour.
How are you?
I am wonderful. I have an opportunity to talk about France, so I'm in a good mood.
Excellent. So today we're going to talk about a bit of a whirlwind trip that you had, and you hit a lot of different places very quickly, and we did an itinerary consult together, and you wanted to do 5 cities over 11 days, but you actually wanted to do more than that, and I tried to talk you out of that because it was, it was just too quick. And you went with your kids, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the group and how you figured you were going to do this.
It was my husband and I have 3 daughters. 2 of them came. My youngest, who is 15. My middle daughter is 22. Well, she was 22 at the time. And she brought her boyfriend along. So it was the 5 of us. I have always wanted to come to France. And it just was, I'm like, I'm not getting any younger. Let's just make this happen. And we actually had recently decided before that we wanted to move to France. So I was like, let's go over there and check out some cities and see which cities that we like the best so that we can come back in the summertime later that year and spend time in like maybe 1 or 2 of our favorite cities.
Oh, cool.
So that is what we did.
So how many trips have you had to France total? Was this your first, second, third?
It was my very first.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, okay. I had forgotten that detail. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, but you're not retired yet, are you? You look too young.
Oh, no. No, I'm young. We're planning on figuring out a way to get a visa so we can come over there and work. I actually listened to another podcast, and I believe I was actually surprised you were a guest on her show, Alison Lunez with Transformation.
Oh, yes, yes.
We plan on hiring her and having her help us figure out what to do, best visa to get over there so we can move and work and live in France.
Oh, that's great. That's a really good idea. She's very good at what she does. She gave me her book when we met in person. We had dinner once, and it's like a big old book. I mean, there's a lot of information there. Alison Lunas is a really good resource for people who want to move because she's not going to lead you astray and tell you what you want to hear if it's not real. She'll make it real if it can happen. If you're on the wrong track, she'll set you straight. So I really think that's a very good way to go. And you have time. You don't have to do this right away.
Exactly. We're waiting till my youngest graduates from high school. So we've got a few years to figure it out.
Okay, very good. So it's strange because you came to France, but you didn't really spend any time in Paris. You came to the south.
None at all.
Okay. Why is that?
I didn't want to live in Paris. I knew I wanted to be in the south of France. Mediterranean had a huge draw, so I just started looking at cities. I really didn't know anything about it. I started doing some research. I did some Google searches, and that's actually how I came across your podcast. And I started listening to your podcast about different cities. And, it was like, okay, Montpellier, Marseille. And then I just started looking at like little towns because we had originally wanted just little towns, maybe kind of not too far from the beach or, the coast or maybe inland a little. And then after listening to your podcast, I was like, honey, I think we need to look at Toulouse too. Toulouse probably is something we want to check out. So that's just I just went to a map and looked at things, listened to your podcast and started deciding where sounded nice.
Wow. Wow. So you decided to move to France before you started listening to the podcast. So this is something that you decided long ago.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Wow. You are a determined person. So I think you'll make it happen.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. They're like, you got this in the bag. I was like, yeah, I'm the type of person that once I decide I want something, I typically get it.
You go get it. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, you're willing to do the work and go get it. That's awesome. All right. So you came to Toulouse, but you didn't land in Toulouse, did you?
We did. We flew into Toulouse. So Toulouse was my first impression of France, and we absolutely fell in love.
Oh, wow.
Fell in love with Toulouse.
Well, do tell, because, I'm from here, so I am enjoying this.
Yes. Oh, it's just such a beautiful city. We're actually one of the cities we've chosen to come back to this summer. We landed at the airport and, being from America and flying in big cities, I was, international. I'm thinking it's this huge airport. It's not a very big airport.
Nope.
But, the funny story, we get off and we're coming out, we get our baggage and there's a place where you exit where there's mirrored doors, and we were so jet lagged and so tired. We didn't know it was a door, and we just kind of stood in front of it till someone else looked at us like we were nuts, and they walked up to it and it opened, and I was like, okay, we're jet lagged.
You are. And that's really important to realize when you travel. When you arrive, you're happy to be there. You're excited to be there, but your brain's not working quite right. Be careful. Don't kill yourself or don't get your stuff stolen right away, because that's it's prime time for accidents and for mishaps is when you first land. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. And then I was thankful we had the hotel have a taxi waiting for us, which was very helpful. We stayed at Le Grand Balcon, which is a lovely little hotel, lovely staff, loved everything about it. We ended up with a room looking right over the Capitol Square, which just lovely. And then the taxi, once you get into the old city, we'd never been to European cities. So it's like, the little taxis on the road with all the people. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to hit him. He's going to hit him. He's going to hit him. Nope, he doesn't hit him. So that was white knuckling a little bit. I was like, oh gosh. Yeah. So, we got to our hotel and we ended up going out to dinner at a cute little Italian restaurant right there on the plaza, or I don't know what to call them.
So the Place du Capitole.
Place du Capitole. There we go.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we did that night. We were tired, went to sleep, and then we had hired Elise to do a tour of Toulouse the next day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we met her and she took us all over. She took us to the Halles Victor Hugo, and showed us all this yummy food and wonderful market. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I could live here. I could do this.
Yes.
Where else did she took us to Saint Sernin?
Yes.
Which was just my first church I've ever seen that looked anything like that. And I was just awestruck. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And I just love her stories. I would recommend anybody who wants to hire a tour guide. I just love Elise. My husband and I are talking about what we want to do this summer, and we're going to see if we can actually hire her again to do something else.
Yeah, she's really good. She puts on a good tour, and she knows Toulouse inside and out. And not just Toulouse, all the Southwest area. She's really good at it.
Yeah, it was definitely, we really liked it. The 20-year-olds, they enjoyed it. We did a whole half a day. So I think by the end of the time, the kids were a little bit like, okay, Mom, we're done. My 15-year-old was completely done because it was a lot of walking, and she doesn't do a lot of walking, and she was jet lagged and new country, grumpy. So I was like,
yeah.
Okay, but my husband and I, we loved it.
That's
and then
great.
The beginning, everybody in the beginning was great, but after a while they were like, okay, are we done walking yet?
Yeah, it is a lot of walking when you're not used to it. In America, you pretty much only walk when you're in a mall.
Yeah. And, my husband and I we're twice their age. And so we're just like trucking along. And this was the whole trip. The whole trip, we were like, kids, come on, kids, catch up. We're the old people. You're supposed to be running circles around us.
Oh, that's funny.
But they couldn't keep up. So it's kind of funny. So we did that with Elise. And then after we left her, we went over to the archaeological museum over by the Saint Sernin, I think is where it is.
Yeah, it's called Saint-Raymond.
Yeah, and that was great. We all really liked that a lot. It was neat to like see all the different, I guess they have like reliefs and sculptures and the head busts, and so that was pretty cool. And then go down kind of like in the basement, see everything down there.
I've been going to that museum since I was a kid. They took us there on school trips and stuff.
I was going to say, we actually ran into a kids program while we were there. And it was not school-age kids, but they were probably like anywhere from like 3 to 6. And, it's all in French. But they were talking, the person leading the program was talking slow enough because they were little kids and it was simple words that it was kind of cool because we understood a little.
That's great.
I know that word.
Yeah. So school kids go there all the time, but I haven't been inside in years. I really need to go back because I think I remember a little bit about it, but not enough, So, and I do enjoy museums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was nice. It's not too big. It's a nice size. It's like a couple floors, like 3 or 4 floors, and you get through it in like an hour and a half, and it's great.
So did you try some of the local food while in Toulouse?
Oh, I have 2 very picky youngins, one pickier than the other. So we weren't very adventurous with food because we had to find something that everybody would like something. But we did go to L'Entrecôte. That was one of your recommendations. And oh, yes, we all fell in love. We didn't realize it was you order one thing and you can eat all that you want. So when we got there and we realized that, we were like, oh.
Yeah, it's all you can eat fries.
Yeah, fries. Yes,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
But they gave us like we would have never been able to eat all of the steak that they put in front of us to begin with. It was so much steak for 5 people. Yeah. And we didn't have to wait in line because you were like, well, it might not be busy because I think it was a Monday night we were there, maybe a Tuesday night. I can't quite remember. So we were waiting, to wait in line, and we didn't have to wait in line, which was great. But we did get lost on the way there because we were like, I've discovered that do not use Google Maps when walking in Toulouse. Apple Maps works way better.
Well, see, that's something I have not tested because I kind of know my way around Toulouse, so I haven't had to use either one. But you can also do City Mapper in Toulouse, and I do love City Mapper in Paris. I like the walking. It makes sense to me, the way they laid out. But that's a really personal thing. Whatever you're used to probably is what you will enjoy. So you use Google Maps when you walk in the US, but here it didn't work?
Yes. It doesn't always work great in the US either. There's some places it works great and some places it doesn't. I've just discovered. We did a small little 20-minute tour all around that general area of Toulouse because we were at the hotel and I was like, oh, it's just over there. We can walk there in 15, 20 minutes. We went all out of the way. It was kind of comical. And then once we found it, we were like, oh, yeah, we were way out of the way.
Yeah.
And being from the States, you don't walk places at night in the U.S. And especially places like some of those old streets, they look like dark alleys, but they're not dark alleys. It's just an old city and that's how it's built. But it had that feeling to us, and I'm like, we're in France, we're fine. I had to shake that, this isn't the U.S. There's nobody waiting to mug you around the corner.
Not really, no. I mean, I'm not saying it never happens, but it's really unusual. You might get robbed. Somebody might try and lift your phone or something, but that's about the worst that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't get that anywhere. I was like, we're cool. We're fine. So we ate there. Where else did we go in Toulouse? I don't think we were only there pretty much that long. We had 2 dinners. We didn't eat lunch because we were out on the go. We just grabbed snacks. And then we did our breakfast down there's a little cafe outside the Grand Balcon next to the gelato shop. And we would do our breakfast there. And it was just delicious. It was just croissants and, the tartine and the everything. But it was, it was our first taste of having bread and stuff in France. And we were just like, oh my gosh, we're little piggies.
Yeah, that's really exciting to talk to somebody who hadn't, your first experience of France it was Toulouse, because usually people go to Paris a few times before they venture
Hmm.
south, You really did it completely different from other people. So that's great.
And it's funny because everywhere we went in the south of France, they all asked us where we were traveling from, where we were going. And when they found out we hadn't been to Paris yet, like the look of surprise on everybody's faces. You've not been to Paris? You came here first?
I
We're like,
know. I know. That never
yeah,
happens.
Paris is a big city. I'm sure it's beautiful, but it was just like, we're moving to France, so we can go see Paris anytime after that. We're in no hurry.
So Toulouse is on the list of places that you're considering for a possible move.
Yes. Yes, we
That's
will be back at the end of July, and we rented a place right around Saint Sernin.
nice.
Yeah.
So end of July is going to be very quiet. I have to warn you, Toulouse empties a lot in the summer. And
Hmm.
since it's not a super touristy town, it feels very quiet. It feels much quieter because you were here the second half of February when
Yes.
it's like full life. Everybody's going to work and school and whatever. It's going to feel
Hmm.
quieter in July because people are on vacation, including me. I'll be away.
The other city we chose was Montpellier. We're going to go back there, and we're doing that the first 2 weeks. And I did it that way because I knew that July was everybody went on vacation, and I wasn't sure, you know, I want to spend time on the beach in Montpellier, which is one of the reasons that we chose that because we didn't get to do any of the beaches the last trip.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, everybody comes south to the beach, so I'm sure Montpellier probably gets very crowded, or at least in that area. So we chose that the
Yes.
first 2 weeks.
Yes, Montpellier is not going to be dead in the summer the same way that Toulouse is. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that Toulouse is dead. I'm just saying that it's not as busy as when you have seen it with lots of people in the streets. In July, it's going to be fewer people in the streets. Montpellier should be like year round. There's people year round because it is a town not far from the Mediterranean, and so people go enjoy the sea and cultural visits and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So it's going to be livelier, I think.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I did right.
So in the notes that you sent me, you told me that you had some adventures in the train, and I want to hear all about that.
Yeah, so trains in Europe, and we had a little warning, but you don't know till you get there and you experience. Trains like the subway here, you have a good few minutes to get on and off the train. They just don't take off. They wait for everybody to get on and then they take off. I don't know how they do it here, but I've never in my whole life had a train door close on me.
Yeah.
We get to the train station there in Toulouse, and it's packed. Like I didn't expect it to be like there was no. It was hard to even walk around.
Well, they're also renovating it, so they've closed off a lot of areas.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't find anybody that spoke English to kind of help. We had your trip guide, so I knew kind of what I was looking for. But somewhere it got lost in my brain that they're not going to post what platform you need to go to till like 15 minutes, 20 minutes before it shows up. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, we're trying to figure out like where to go. We don't know where to go. And then our train gets canceled. And we're like, oh, what do we do now? And so
Ah.
we had to figure out like, oh, okay, yeah, I have the app. I can go in, I can reschedule. So we waited at the train station for a good 2 hours for our next train with all our luggage. And then we're still like trying, like, where's our train? We couldn't figure. So finally, my youngest, who happened to have just been paying attention, was like, oh, there it is. It just popped up. We need to go here. So then it's a mad dash down the escalator to figure out where we're going. And we got to the train literally seconds. In fact, one of the party had to like hop on the train in a different car and then get to the correct car by being inside the train, because it was like the train conductor was like, you need to get on, you need to get on. And,
Right.
we're like running with our luggage. And so we're already frazzled. We get on the train, we find our seats, and I tell my kids and my husband, I say, well, we're heading to Carcassonne. It's one stop. So the next stop, when the train starts to slow down, let's grab our stuff and get off.
Okay.
When we're going, the train starts to slow down. I get up. I'm like, come on, guys, let's go. My family just all stares at me. And I'm like, come on, let's go. They're like, nobody else is getting off the train. And I'm like, because
Well,
nobody else is getting off at this stop. We're the
yeah.
only ones in our car getting off at this stop. Come on, let's go. They're just staring at me. And it took a lady in her broken English to be like, y'all need to go, So finally, they all start to follow me. And my daughter's boyfriend somehow got in front of me. I'm not quite sure how. And he can't figure out how to open the train door. And I'm like, oh, gosh. So I move him out of the way. And I'm like, okay, it's really not that hard. Okay, be patient. We're all jet lagged. So I open the
Yeah.
door. We hop off the train. I get off. Jesse gets off. I think my youngest got off. And then the train started moving. And so my husband's like, oh, gosh. My husband jumps off.
Oh, dear.
And then the last one on is my 23-year-old daughter, who has on a 50-pound backpack and has a suitcase. She tosses her suitcase out the front.
Oh, no.
And she stands there for a minute, and the train's starting to gain speed. And we're like, Chloe, jump, Chloe, jump. So she jumps off.
Okay, this is
She's a
really
tiny-
dangerous. It's really
yes,
dangerous.
it's very.
Yes.
We just didn't know what to do because she was like, she's the one out of everybody that like, not a lick of French. If her phone went down and she's like, she wouldn't ask. It would have been. It was better for her to jump off the train than to take the train onto Narbonne by herself.
I guess.
So I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else. So she has the backpack on and loses her balance because it weighs half of what she weighs. And thank God she rolled away from the train and not into the train. Meanwhile, there is a train attendant way down the platform who is like running towards us, screaming, I'm sure cursing us out in French. She gets up to us and I'm like, parlez-vous anglais? And she's like, no, and just starts still laying into me, and I'm like, je ne comprends pas, like, and she just so finally just walked away while she's still yelling at us, and I was like, yes, we're those stupid Americans. I'm sorry, this will not happen again.
Okay, so just to clarify, okay, so Toulouse is well known as a place where they cancel trains. It can happen in lots of places, but Toulouse is worse than many. Whenever there's like a national strike or whatever, Toulouse is always joining the strike, so it can be a problem. So if your train is canceled for any reason, just look at the app. That's why I recommend people install the app and buy directly from SNCF if they can.
Yes,
because then
that's exactly what we did.
They get updates and you can see what the next train is, because some of these train stations, and I didn't realize Toulouse was this bad. I mean, last time I had to go talk to an attendant at the train station in Toulouse, somebody next to me was speaking English with a person, a customer. So I know there are some, but of course you never know if you're going to find the one who's comfortable speaking English or not. So that's the first thing, is book your train with the app. And even if you didn't book it from the French app, from the SNCF Connect app, try to import your trip into that app. So that way you have updates, okay? That's the fastest, best way to know what's happening with your train. And then obviously people don't all get off at the same stop. So you might be the only person getting off. You have to keep track of where the train is. Did that train have any kind of TV monitors inside of the wagon, or was it like a simpler?
It was a simpler train. There wasn't anything inside that kind of told you. If I hadn't known like the first stop, because they come on and you can barely hear and it's all in French, and I'm the one that knows the most French, and that's not that much. So I'm like listening out for Carcassonne, and, they go so fast, and your ear's just not, your second day there, your ear's not trained to how, it's spoken with a French accent. All my French knowledge is from people who, speak English as their native language, and they know French.
Right. So yes, trains don't take very long stops. So typically what I tell people is that they should be ready to exit. I mean, the train slows down as it's pulling up. And if you have the app again, on the app, it will show you where you are.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yes. And so you can keep track of more or less, or even Google Maps. If you open Google Maps, it'll show you a dot moving. It'll show you moving around. And so you can see if you're approaching the place where you're supposed to get off. When the train starts slowing down, get your stuff ready by the door, because you'll only have 3-4 minutes to exit the train, really. It's pretty quick. And they have one train person on the dock making sure that people are not doing what you're doing. And so if that person's on the other side, they can't yell at you to stay on the freaking train. Get off at the next stop. You're too late. You missed the stop. You just missed your stop.
So needless to say, we didn't miss any other stops.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yes, that's important. And same if you are a little late getting on the train, you don't have to walk to the right spot to get on the train because you can move within the train. Like you can totally walk up and down the train inside. If you're supposed to go to, I don't know, car number 12, and the first one you get to is car number 1, just get on that car number 1 and make your way inside the train to car number 12. It might take you a while because there's people and there's luggage and all that, but you'll figure it out and get on as early as you can because really, once you understand how these trains work, they line them up. There's markers on the track and they tell you, if you find the right display, it'll tell you that car number 12, again, is going to be by marker Y. And so if you're there plenty early, but that's the thing that happens. What you indicated is exactly what happens. People get worried that they can't find their train on the display. They're like, we're supposed to go in half an hour and it's not listed. No, it's not going to be listed just yet. It's just on time. They want you to be heading towards your train 15 minutes before. And that makes people nervous a lot of the time. But if you know how to read the display well, then you can say, oh, I'm supposed to go to track number 4 and marker Y. And there you go. And when the train pulls up, you're going to have just a few meters to walk. But it takes some getting used to. And it was your first time. I mean, you're not supposed to know everything on your first time.
Yeah. But by the end, we got it. It took us a little bit, but, I'm confident this trip in my train travel.
Yes. And this is another thing to consider is that people wonder, is it going to be tricky to drive in France? And it can be, but honestly, it's not like taking the train. A complicated train system for the first time is super easy either. Like you can be surprised by in both places. So anyway, so you survived. You jump out of the train, your daughter did, and I'm glad. And then you visited Carcassonne.
Yes. So we get to Carcassonne and we originally had planned on taking the bus, but we were all just so frazzled and tired. And I was like, okay, we're going to get a taxi. But it's, a small little town and we wait and we wait and we wait and no taxi shows up. And we're 5 people. And if you have more than 4 people, we discovered anywhere, it's really hard because France is just not built for, or at least in our experience, because maybe if you know how to navigate it, they don't like, it's not built for large groups. You got to get 2 of everything. And, we hadn't planned on that.
Yeah, in that case, I think Uber van would have been better. But in Carcassonne,
we didn't see one. So we ended up calling a taxi station and they sent somebody out and we had to all pile in one car with somebody sitting on somebody's lap because they were like, sorry, we don't have anything big enough. So we were like, all our luggage in the back, we're all in the front. But he was like, it's not far, which it wasn't. So, it was fine. We just went through the little city and we stayed at the Best Western there in Carcassonne. And just loved Carcassonne. And I can't remember, I think it was you said that it wasn't going to be very busy because it was a Monday and it was off season, but that was absolutely perfect for us. I know I've heard you say in other podcasts that Carcassonne can get just crazy in the summertime. So it was very, very cold, very, very windy, but we knew that the weather was going to be that way. So, we just bundled up and it's a lovely little hotel. The staff there was great, very accommodating. We got there kind of late in the afternoon, so we had time to drop off our stuff. We went and had a drink at one of the little places and then went back and just kind of chilled and went back out to dinner at this little place. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. I had it written down and I lost it. But it's the lady that owns the place said it's the only restaurant in the old city that has a fireplace still. I guess because somehow they were grandfathered in because it's the fireplace that's been there since it was built. And it's just a little traditional French food restaurant, but they have stuff. I think it's, touristy, obviously. So they have other things. But my husband and I had the cassoulet and having nothing else to compare it to, it was absolutely delicious. It was So good, so good. And it was like a little home atmosphere. It's like, decorated all quirky and got, it's like you went to somebody's house and they turned their living room into a little restaurant. It was great.
Nice.
So we had dinner there. And then the next day we did the tour of I guess, is it called a chateau, the castle, the chateau?
Yeah. Comtal is what it's called.
That's it. Yes, yes. We did a tour of the chateau and that was great. America's so new, wrapping my head around how old everything is over there. I just love it. I think in a former life, I was probably an archaeologist, or maybe I lived all these places in my former life. So I'm reliving them. I just love all things old. And that was a great little tour. I have a 2-year-old grandson who stayed home with his mom because he was too young for an 11-hour flight. But when he's old enough to do that flight and comes out, we definitely will go there again because I loved it. Just walking around the streets and everything old. We went to the Torture Museum, which was very eye-opening. Again, we did that at the recommendation at the hotel. The lady, she knew we had younger kids. She's like, oh, for you guys, there's a haunted house and there's a torture museum. We didn't do the haunted house, but we did the Torture Museum.
I must have gone to Carcassonne 1,000 times and I've never been inside of that museum. So it's good to hear that. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. It's definitely a touristy museum and, but you're in Carcassonne, you're staying a night, and were we leaving that day? No, I think we stayed one more night and then we left the next day or something like that.
So that might have been a little too long because Carcassonne.
I take that back. We did not. We stayed one night. We left that same day. So we got up early and did everything and then caught our train.
Okay. So how did you get back to the train station?
We got another taxi and it must have been a bigger taxi, I think, that time, because I don't recall us having to squeeze in together.
Right. Yeah. So it's a bit luck of the draw there.
Yeah. And the train station at Carcassonne is teeny tiny. So it was a lot easier.
And the airport is teeny tiny as well.
Yeah. Our train had gotten delayed again, canceled and rescheduled at Carcassonne. So we were like, I think almost every train we took was either delayed or was rescheduled. Yeah, it was. I was like, okay. I had asked the taxi driver at one point. I was like, is this normal? He's like, yeah.
It happens. Yes, it's true. It happens. And locals, we just roll with it. We just go, crap, I'm going to have to wait an hour here.
We got used to it by the end of the trip. So then we hopped on the train and went down to Narbonne. And we got off the train station and we decided we had rented an apartment on Booking that was a converted convent, which was actually really neat. It was a nice apartment. We walked from the train station. It wasn't that far. It was like a 10, 15-minute walk. It was very nice. And Narbonne is a charming little town. I imagine it probably does get busier maybe in the summertime, but it was just the right amount of people. The place we stayed was great.
Yeah, in February, it's going to be very quiet.
But there was still a good amount of people. It wasn't overcrowded. But in the daytime, everybody was out, doing the lunch on the cafes. And we went out to dinner. We just kind of, because you had warned us that the food in Narbonne was not very good. Or not that it was not very good, but nothing to write home about.
Exactly. It's normal stuff.
Yes, that was our experience as well. We were going to try to go to the Grand Buffet, but I failed to make reservations and we weren't able to go. We were kind of like, oh, because we were all really looking forward to that because we're all big foodies, at least to some extent. Like I have picky eaters, but what they eat, they're foodie like, and you can find it. Buffet satisfies everybody.
Yes. So Narbonne has this destination. It's a big buffet, but it's a big buffet French style. So they serve I don't know how many cheeses. They have hundreds of varieties of cheeses and they have regional specialties from all over France. And so this is your chance to try different things. The thing is you have to book because it's always full. You have to book in advance.
Yeah. In fact, my husband and I, we were like, how far is that from where we're going this summer? Because we were considering going back and we were like, oh, it's a 2-hour train ride no matter where we are. So yeah, not worth it to go 2 hours just to have dinner.
Yeah, but this is the kind of place that French people kind of, you buy gift certificates to your friends and family. It is a destination restaurant. People go there just to go there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, maybe we will end up doing that. We haven't decided. And then we were going to rent a car the next day and drive to the beach, but I had woken up. I had planned on the night before looking at your videos and about how to drive in France. I think something had happened to your YouTube and it was down.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so I went to go watch it that morning and it wasn't
You
there.
couldn't,
And
yeah.
I couldn't, and my jet lag had just set in. My husband had gone out to the boulangerie around the corner and came back with croissants for everybody. And he got this one thing that had hazelnut in it. And he was like, oh, this looked good. I got that for whoever. Well, I came out and was the last one to get, a pastry, and he had just gotten enough for everybody. And all that was left was the hazelnut one. And I don't like hazelnut. So I almost started crying. I was just like, and that's not me. I was just like, okay, jet lag is setting in. I was like, I can't get the thing to refresh my memory on how to drive, and I'm crying over hazelnut pastries.
You're stressed.
Yeah, so I was just like, okay, we're not renting the car today because I'm not driving. I had already prepaid and everything, but I was like, you know what? We're just going to stroll around Narbonne today. And that's what we did, and it was absolutely lovely. We just walked around the city and did some shopping and had some lunch. We went to, I think, is there one or two churches there? We went to one of the churches there.
There's the one that everybody goes to. I'm sure there's many more, but there's one that everybody goes to. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I can't either. It's a big one. Our place that we stayed had a rooftop tower that we could go up to and look over all of Narbonne, which was really pretty. And it's right there. You can't miss it. It was gorgeous. Oh, and we had gone to the church in Carcassonne too. Churches were just never on my radar. We're not super religious people, but now I want to go to every church in France just to see because they're so pretty.
And they're interesting. Yeah, they are interesting most of the time. Yeah. Then you hop back on the train to get to Montpellier.
Yes. So then we get to Montpellier. On and off the train was great. We had done kind of our research before we left, and we're like, okay, our place is walking distance, which it was, but it was all uphill. We went to the Saint Rose station, but Montpellier was just popping. It had so many people. I think we got there around 3 p.m, and it was everywhere. People everywhere. It has the trams that go around, and so it was a very, kind of the same thing as in Toulouse. It was very busy, but we got there by train versus plane, so it was kind of a different feel. We rented a cute little apartment off of the Place was it the Marché de Place de Fleurs, something like that. But it was tons of little restaurant cafes with their seats out everywhere, and we were there 2 nights, maybe 2.5, and we got in on a Thursday night. And I guess Thursday is the very busy night we discovered around where we were, because we went out Thursday night for dinner, and just everywhere, waits everywhere, people walking all over the city. And then ironically, Friday night, it wasn't as busy. It was really weird because, in the States, it's Friday and Saturday night. That's, busy everywhere. And they were still busy, but compared to what Thursday was, I was like, oh, wow. And then it was like happy hour all day in the restaurants in the plaza where we were. So it was like, oh, okay. Hey, we like Montpellier. And we just walked around the city. We did a dinner, walked around the city. My younger 2 left out of Montpellier the next day. My husband and I and my 15-year-old stayed for the rest of the trip. So the next day we went to the Musée Fabre, which was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. We probably did 2.5 hours in there, and the last half hour was like a rushed, okay, we want to see everything because we just liked it so much, because they were like, okay, guys, time to go. And I was like, no, there's more. So we could have easily done more. Great museum. I highly recommend that to anybody that goes there. We went over to, oh gosh, I should have done my homework and written everything down where we went. There's a promenade where they have their own little Arc de Triomphe. We went and saw that, and behind that is like the little park with the statues of one of the King Louis and the aqueducts, and that was gorgeous. We really enjoyed strolling along there.
Montpellier is a lovely town, really, because it's a good size, and another thing you mentioned in your notes before we talked was that French cities, like in America, you wouldn't think that you would want to live downtown in a city. But in France, it's a different feel, isn't it?
It's totally different. We hadn't even considered living in the city. And now we're both like, let's ditch the cars and live in the city because it's totally doable. Because in both places, well, not in Toulouse, but even in Toulouse, being in the hotel and on the square, we thought it would be noisy but it wasn't. It was not noisy at all.
Well, some days it is, but cities are really nice. If you can afford city centers, and usually it's a lot more expensive too, but if you can afford to live in a city center, it's a very nice lifestyle because you don't need a car really, or you only need it occasionally. And it's a really good, it's very good. In America, you want to be in the suburbs, not necessarily. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with French suburbs. We don't have that many of them because France is a lot more, I guess, dense, Around cities, we have densely populated areas and then empty for quite a while, or with just little villages sprinkled here and there.
We totally were like, yeah, we could do this. So, in fact, that's what we're planning on doing. And I think probably by French standards, the cities, at least Montpellier and Toulouse, if you're coming from America, if you live in California, you're going to think anything that you can get there is a steal. Because we actually looked into some properties and we could get twice the size for half of what we pay for here. That's half the size. That was another kind of eye-opener. We're like, oh, wow.
And that depends a lot on where you're from.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's why people who live in London, they have a tiny flat in London and they can buy a pretty nice house somewhere in the south of France because of the prices in London. It's a big difference. And there are places, like Montpellier would get fairly expensive, so would Toulouse, but you have little smaller towns that are not quite as much. There's plenty of opportunities, let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely. We love Montpellier. There was funny, and I don't know if you know anything about this. There was, everywhere we go, Montpellier had the most wonderful street art, like graffiti, but not like graffiti that you'd see here in the U.S. It was actually like, little things of art. And then every once in a while, you'd see half of a bicycle sticking out of a building. I don't know what that was, but I was like, okay, what is this?
Decorative.
Yeah, it was just so weird. I was like, why a bicycle? It was everywhere we went. I was like, okay, it was fun. I appreciated it.
Yeah, and it's a fun town. You can do a lot in Montpellier around a bike because it's fairly flat, but there's small little hills, but it's easy hills. And a lot of it is pedestrian or bikes. There's a fair bit in the city center where they don't let most cars come through. And a lot of French cities are doing that. They limit the number of cars that can come through the city center to only the people who live there.
Yeah, they have those it took us a while to figure out what that was, the little things that come up out of the ground. We were like, oh, it's keeping people out.
Exactly, keeping cars out. Unless they live there or they're a taxi. If they're a taxi, they have the stuff to make them, because they have to take people to their hotel. And that's one of the problems with Uber, is that Uber drivers do not have what it takes to lower those pegs. And so they can't take you to the very city center most places.
Yeah, we found that out when we were at Toulouse. The hotel called the taxi. He punched in the code and went right in. When we went to Marseille, which was our next stop, we got on the train and we went over to Marseille. And the train station at Marseille was huge. It's the biggest train station we went to. And we just found the taxi area, it was probably an Uber now that you tell me this. They drove us over to, or maybe they weren't an official taxi, I don't know. But he couldn't get into the city center. He was like, I just can drop you here. And, and he didn't speak very good. He spoke some English, but not a lot. And, I was trying to be like, can't you just punch the code? He didn't have it.
So you had some issues in Marseille. Let's talk about that as we finish up.
Yes, Marseille, lovely city, but it's a different feel. Got off the train, hopped a taxi, and it feels like a European New York. It's the only way I know how to describe it. The buildings are taller. There's a lot more people. It's much more dense. We got to our hotel. We stayed at the Old Port, a nice little hotel. And, we dropped off our stuff. We come back down. And first we noticed ambulances, like, crazy. Like, you just hear them everywhere. And we're like, okay, it's a bigger city, whatever. We walked to go find dinner, and there's an ambulance right outside the hotel. My 15-year-old swears that she saw somebody with the sheet all the way over them getting into the ambulance. She's like, that was a dead person, Mom. I was like,
Oh
no,
dear.
it wasn't. And she's like, no, Mom, I swear to you. I was like, it wasn't a dead person. She's like, they had the sheet. I swear. I didn't see it, so I don't know. So she immediately the whole time is like, okay, I saw a dead person in Marseille.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's possible.
You hear about Marseille being dangerous, this, that, and the other. And we had heard also from a lot of people, it's like any other big city. You have your bad parts of town. You stay away from this area and you're fine. But, not knowing the area, not having anyone with us, we were like, okay, well, north of town, I think is what we were told. And we're like, but how far north? Like, where exactly, because we just have this little view of like wherever we walk. We always had that in the back of our mind the whole time we were there. We're a little bit hyper cautious. Hindsight 2020, I don't think we really need to be, but like you said, it was a whirlwind trip. By the time we got to Marseille, we were exhausted.
And Marseille is a big city and with a lot of people, and it probably has a little more crime than Toulouse, for example. Yes, I'm sure it does. But you were in a nice part of it, like right around the port is as nice as it gets, but all the ambulances and all that, yeah, that would be unsettling.
Yeah, it was, I was like, oh, it's a big city, but I'm like, I've been to New York and stayed in New York, and I don't hear this many ambulances.
So one other thing I wanted to talk about, you took the bus between Marseille and Aix.
Yes, yeah.
How was that?
It was super easy. We later found out, we'd asked the hotel, how do we get to Aix? She's like, oh, you hop the train to here to the train station. Well, we found out we didn't need to take a taxi from the train station. We could have just taken the train all the way to our hotel. And our hotel was like literally at the train stop. But yeah, she says, take this bus. I think it was like bus 50 or something like that. And it was super easy. Got to the train station. Took us a minute to figure out where the buses were. But once we did that, went to the bus, paid for our round trip ticket right there at the bus. They took credit cards. So that was easy. We didn't have to have exact cash or anything. And it was about a 20-30 minute ride. And, these buses aren't like buses in the States. These are like the coach buses that you would hire to drive across country. So that was nice. I wasn't expecting that. The buses that take you from city to city here in the States often aren't very nice. They have plastic seats. These were actually very comfortable, air conditioned.
Yeah, it's normal to take the bus. I have to congratulate you because for your first time in France, you did a lot of stuff that's unusual. And also you were quite daring. I mean, you took a lot of public transportation and there you are. You want to come again and check it out some more so you can still continue to find a place to live. So that's amazing. That's really amazing because most Americans, they just want to stay within their comfort zone, which is the car. Because that's what they're used to,
yeah.
You really went out of your way to try things. And so coming back, you'll look around again at Toulouse, Montpellier, and did you say Aix as well?
We were considering Aix. It's a little bit smaller. I'm kind of leaning towards the other two. My husband was like, oh, well, let's check Aix out more. But I feel that it might be a little bit on the small side for us coming from Los Angeles.
Yes, and I'm sure I've said that before on the podcast, but Aix is a lot of older people and older money. It's harder to kind of make your place in Aix because they are not looking to expand. These are somewhat people with their lives are made and they're not looking to make any friends. Montpellier is a lot more open and a lot more, I think it would be easier to fit in, or Toulouse, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea we had. And Marseille, the people in Marseille, actually, granted, it's just on a tourist, not knowing the actual people that like live there, but the people at the shops and the servers and stuff, they were so friendly and wanted to know more about us than I think anywhere else we were in France. Mm-hmm. It was kind of really, surprising. It was nice. They were really nice. And it was more diverse than everywhere else in France. I live outside of LA in Orange County in a very not diverse part. So I'm, we're used to that. I like diversity, but, I'm going to live where I'm going to live.
Yeah.
But, for people who are looking for their point of travel or moving or whatever and want more diversity, Marseille is definitely the place to go. Yeah. It was nice. We really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Well, Kelly, we've been talking a long time. I'm afraid we need to bring it to an end. It's been lovely to have you. Do you have anything you wanted to add that I didn't ask you about?
I don't think so. I would just tell anybody who's interested in kind of doing the same thing. We did it that quick and that fast because we were on a mission. It wasn't really vacation. It was let's see where we want to come back and spend more time. If you want to just do it for a vacation, spend more time in each city because they're all lovely. And we indeed left each city not wanting to leave to go to the next city. We really wanted more of the city we were in until we got to the next city. We're like, oh, this is nice too. So definitely wouldn't recommend hitting that many cities in 5 days unless you're on a mission, which we were.
Yeah, take your time.
But go to the south of France. Go there before you go to Paris. It's absolutely lovely. We're actually hitting Paris when we go back this summer.
Oh, good. It's nice too. Yeah, it's very nice too.
We're doing the whole museum thing. That's our whole focus of Paris.
Museums, you will enjoy Paris. Paris has amazing museums. Yep, they're excellent for that. Kelly, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2022 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.